Thank you so much for worshiping with us. You may be seated this morning. Want to welcome everybody at home. So glad you're able to join us online. If you've never been to TC, I invite you to come for a real live in-person worship experience. I promise to you that we will make you feel right at home. Right, church? We'll make you feel right at home. If you live outside of driving distance of our church, so great that you can be a part of this worship experience. Let us know where you're watching from. Let us know how we can help you and be a help to you in your journey to follow Jesus. It's just so great to have all of us here together, both physically in the building and everybody watching at home. And today we're continuing the sermon series called The Gift. It's all about Christmas, everybody. Yes? Y'all ain't excited for Christmas? Come on, y'all. Christmas, Christmas, Christmas. Gotta love Christmas. I just got my outside lights on, just a few of them up, and it just seemed like everybody was decorating earlier this year. Is that true? Yeah, isn't it great? Such a great season to be a part of. It's a season of faith, hope, and love. And today we're going to continue the sermon series called The Gift, Receiving and Giving the Gift of Christmas. How many know that it's always hard to find the right gift for the person you love the most? Isn't that true? Like you wonder, what could be that perfect gift for the person I love the most? Many years ago, while Ruth and I were dating, I got her what I thought was the perfect gift. Years and years ago, I used to work at a store called Service Merchandise here in Middletown. Does anybody remember Service Merchandise? My goodness. I'm dating myself. I was at that store. I was an associate. And if you don't know about Service Merchandise, it's right where Home Goods here is in Middletown. You would look at a catalog and then pick what you want on the catalog, or maybe see it on a display window. They had all kinds of things. They had electronics, jewelry, all kinds of stuff in that place. And you would pick what you want, pay for it, and then you would go to the front of the store. They would send it on a conveyor belt. And then you would pick it up, and it would be right there in front of the store. It was the coolest place. They had a lot of good stuff. So I eyed a gift that I had been looking at for quite some time, and I thought, this is the perfect gift for Christmas. It was the most money I've ever spent in my life on a gift. So I bought it and I brought it home, and it was, I think, Christmas Eve, and we got our family together, and I said, everybody come on down to the basement or the lower level of our house, and I have a beautiful gift. And I said, Ruth, I have a gift for you. And she lit up because she loves gifts. And she gave me the eye like, could this be the gift? And I gave her the eye back. Absolutely. So I said, all right, honey, close your eyes. And I had to go into the garage to go get it. So I said, close your eyes. Everybody's here. Wait for me here. So I went to the garage, and I grabbed the gift, and I had to drag it. So she's hearing. She's like, oh, my God, what is that? I bring it right to her. And I said, open your eyes. And she looked at it, and she unwrapped the gift, and it was a step fitness machine. So this scar right here is where she stabbed me after that. But she looked at me like, and I said, yes, but wait, hold it, honey, there's more. And I went to the garage, I got part 2 of the gift, and it was a brand new pair of Nikes. Come on, somebody. To work with the machine. She was so nice, she didn't make a big deal about it. I ended up bringing it to her house where she lived with her parents. Took me days to put it together. But it was hilarious when she started first using it because it made this noise like, wee, wee, wee. I love it, honey. I'm going to kill this guy. I can't believe I'm with this guy. Who is this guy? She was very gracious and loving. Needless to say, I've learned my lesson. Fellas, do not do that. Don't get anything closer. Don't get vacuum. Don't get a vacuum. Don't get dishes. Don't get pots and pans. Don't get stuff that you know you need to get outside of Christmas and just covering the expense in Christmas. Anything that's like that, don't do. You guys with me? But I got to thinking, how many know that God never messes up when he gives us a gift? God always has the perfect gift to give us at the perfect moment in our lives. And today, I really believe in my heart that God has the most perfect gift he wants to give you and me today. It's a perfect gift at a perfect time. And that gift that he wants to give us is the gift of peace. Peace. If there's ever a time that you and I need peace, how many know it is now? If there ever is a time that you and I need the gift of peace, it is now. The world is going mad. There's so much fear. There's so much anxiety. There's so much worry in the world today. And that worry and that fear has crept up into our souls, and it has made us anxious and fearful and uncertain about tomorrow. We have worries like, are we going to run out of stuff? Are we going to get sick? What's going to happen next? Am I going to have a job? Am I going to be able to make it in 2021? Will there be enough food in the supermarkets? And there's so much uncertainty and trouble in this world. In addition to our tangible needs, when you read the news, there's a lot of tragedy. There's a lot of pain. There's a lot of sorrow. There's a lot of chaos. And it is robbing our peace. It's robbing our joy. There are things that are happening that are stealing our peace. But I just want to tell you today that when you look at the world around us and see the chaos and the trouble around us, it should not surprise you. Because Jesus warned us. Jesus warned us in the book of John, chapter 16, verse 33. Jesus said, in this world you will have what, church? Trouble. You will have trouble. We will have trouble. Trouble didn't start. Can I talk politics for a moment? I don't know if I should. But trouble didn't start when the person you did not elect was placed in office. Wow. Did that help? Yeah. Trouble didn't start there. Trouble didn't start with negative people doing negative things. Trouble started in Genesis chapter 3. Genesis chapter 3 tells us when trouble started, when Adam and Eve took a bite of the fruit, and because they disobeyed God, sin came into the world. Ever since that moment, ever since that time, how many know the world was in trouble? We are not the first generation to experience trouble in this world. We're not the first nation to experience trouble. There has been trouble that people have experienced and nations have experienced for generations, for centuries, thousands of years. The world has experienced trouble. So Jesus said, and let me give you the context to John chapter 16, verse 33, because we could read this verse and not fully understand what's going on. Jesus is telling his disciples that he's leaving. This passage, beginning with John chapter 15, 16, and 17, are really the last words of Jesus. How many know that someone's last words carry extra weight? And Jesus is telling his disciples, you know what he's telling them? Get ready, because they're going to throw you out of the synagogues. He says, get ready, because they're going to scatter you into your homes. He said, get ready because some of you are going to die and lose your life. This is what Jesus is telling his disciples, that he says, in this world, you are going to have trouble. And Jesus is preparing his followers, his disciples, for the trouble they would experience after he would be crucified on the cross. Because Jesus himself was experiencing trouble. So Jesus is telling them and explaining to them all of the different kinds of trouble that they would experience. But why? Why was Jesus talking about trouble? The reason why Jesus was talking to them about trouble, Jesus says it. I have told you these things so that what? In me you may have peace. See, Jesus is saying, you will experience trouble in this world. You're going to experience turmoil, pain. That word trouble means pain and sorrow and difficulties and tragedies. You're going to experience sorrow. You're going to experience pain and difficulty. But I'm telling you this so that what, church? In me, you may have peace. You will have trouble, but just know that you will have peace. And I know what you guys are thinking. Some of you are thinking, well, how could that be? How could you have trouble and peace? Isn't peace the absence of trouble? And that's where some of you are at today. You're thinking, I would have a little more peace if this problem went away. How many are with me on that? Like, if this problem went away, I would have peace. And you're looking at your circumstances. You're looking at what's happening in the world. And you're looking at the country. And you're thinking, if that were to change, 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 then I would have peace. But Jesus is saying, no, none of that will change. Some of it may not change. But even if it doesn't change, you could have peace. Because peace is not dependent upon your circumstances. Peace is not dependent upon what's going right or wrong in your life. You see, peace is not the absence of trouble, but the presence of Christ in trouble. Jesus said, in this world, you will have trouble. But take heart, be encouraged, because I will give you peace. I will give you my presence. I will give you my spirit. That means whatever trouble you're going through, whatever trouble you're experiencing, don't be afraid. Don't be anxious. Don't be worried, because I will be with you. I love how the psalmist said, even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil because you are with me. What is the psalmist saying? He says, even though I'm walking through these dark, difficult days, I'm not stressing. I'm relaxing because the Prince of Peace is with me. God is with me. Peace is not the absence of trouble. Peace is the presence of Christ in trouble. If you have Jesus, you will have peace. A peace that penetrates your soul. A peace deep down in your innermost being. A peace that keeps you centered. A peace that keeps you anchored. A peace that keeps you secure. A peace that transcends all understanding. It's a peace that God gives you, that he's still on the throne, and that everything's going to be okay, and that he's going to work out his purposes in my life. See, the last part of that verse, if we were to go back, it says, I've told you these things so that in me you may have peace. In this world, you will have trouble. And what's the last part of that verse? He says, what, church? But take heart, because I have overcome the world. Isn't that awesome? Yes. That one day I'm going to make everything wrong right. And one day I'm going to put the earth as my footstool. I have overcome the world, and I'm going to set everything right. He says, take heart, be encouraged. Don't let the trouble of this world rob you of your peace. You see, peace, I think, is the new American dream. See, you can have possessions, but not have peace. You can have popularity, but not have peace. You can have material wealth. You can have finances, but not have peace. You can have everything this world offers and not have peace. You know what people are looking for today more than anything else is peace. Peace in their heart, peace in their mind. And this is what Jesus is telling them in chapter 14. This is what he says. I love, he says, I'm leaving you with a gift. What, church? Peace of mind and heart. Stop right there. How many just need this today? How many say, Pastor, I just need some peace of mind and heart? But this is the gift. Jesus is saying, I am leaving you with a gift. Peace of mind and heart. And the peace I give is a gift the world cannot give. There is nothing in this world that can give you peace. Did you hear me? That's why so many of you don't have peace. That's why so many of us struggle with maintaining our peace. Is because our peace is circumstantial. And God is saying, I'm leaving you with a gift, peace of mind and heart. And the peace I give is a gift the world cannot give. So what does it say, church? Don't be troubled or afraid. Don't be troubled. This is for some of you out there. Don't be afraid. Don't be troubled. Don't be anxious. Don't stress. Learn to relax in Jesus. Learn to walk in his peace. Learn to walk in his power. Learn to walk with his presence. See, the disciples in Mark chapter 4, Jesus said, get into the boat and let's go to the other side. And they all got into the boat and they began taking a journey to the other side, to the other part of the town, of where they were at. And suddenly, the Bible says, there was a furious squall. It was like a windstorm. It was the water was crashing up against the boat. It felt as if the boat was about to sink. And notice what happened. Jesus says, the Bible says here, Mark chapter 4, Jesus was in the stern of the boat, asleep on the pillow. Isn't that interesting? Chaos is breaking out. And where's Jesus? He's sleeping. Why? Because he had peace. Regardless of what was happening to him or around him, he had the peace of God in his soul. He didn't allow the circumstance to rock his world. Instead, he held on to his peace. And then they woke him up and said to him, Teacher, do you not care that we are about to die? Doesn't it feel that way sometimes when we're going through life and we experience this unexpected storm? What's the first thing we say to ourselves? I'm going to die. It's the end of the world. And that's what they said to Jesus. But this statement really makes me cringe because this statement, if you read it, it says, Teacher, do you not care? It's not just a question, it's a rebuke. They rebuked Jesus. Why did they rebuke Jesus? Because they really didn't know who he was. Because if they knew who he was, they would have known that the man in the boat was the creator of the heavens and the earth. They would have known that he had power over sickness, disease, and storms. They would have known. If they really knew who God was, they wouldn't have stressed. They would have gone up to next to Jesus and took a nap with him. But the reason why some of y'all don't sleep is because some of y'all don't really know who Jesus really is. Because if you really knew who he was, you would know him as Jehovah Jireh, my provider. You would know him, that he will provide everything I need according to his riches and glory. You would know him. If you really know him, you wouldn't be worried about your job. You wouldn't be worried about your kids. You wouldn't be worried about your future. You wouldn't have anxiety over the uncertainties of tomorrow. You may not know you may not know what the future holds, but you know who holds the future, right? You see, anxiety and fear are rooted in our lack of knowing who God really is. And that's what happened. They rebuked Jesus because they really didn't know him. Notice what they call him. Let's go back. They just knew Jesus as teacher. I wonder how many of us just know Jesus as teacher. Oh, he's just a teacher. God doesn't want you to just to know him as teacher. He wants you to know him as Son of God, Amen. King of kings, Lord of lords, Master, Savior, right? King. Some of you are stressed out because Jesus is just a teacher to you. But Jesus wants you to know him not just as teacher, but the creator of the heavens and the earth. The one who said, do not worry about your life, what you shall eat, what you should drink, or what you should wear. The one who said, but seek first the kingdom of God, and all of these things will be added unto you. Come on, church, right? That's what Jesus said. If we really believed what Jesus taught and said, if we really believed that he was who he proclaimed he was, guess what we should have? Peace. Peace that he's large and in charge. Peace that he's on the throne. Peace that he's ordering my steps. Peace that he's covering my children. Peace that he's going to provide for my needs. Peace that somehow, some way, God's going to work all things together for my good. See? Anxiety and fear were rooted in our lack of knowing who God really was. So what does Jesus do? Well, I'm sure he was annoyed. Aren't you annoyed when somebody wakes you up from your nap, right? I'd be like, what's wrong with you? Jesus, we're going to die. We're not going to die. I'm the Son of God. So Jesus arose, and what did he do? He rebuked the wind and said to the sea, peace, be still. Don't you love that? Who is Jesus? The man who has the power to speak to the storms. Peace, be still. And the wind ceased, and there was a great calm. See, what I believe is that sometimes Jesus will speak peace to your storm and to our storms. But more often than not, God speaks peace to our souls in the midst of the storm. And I really believe that God wants to speak peace to your life today. He wants to speak peace, be still. And I believe there's going to be a great calm that's going to come over your life. When Jesus is your Lord, when he's your master, not your teacher, you're going to walk in peace. You're going to walk with peace. Amen. Jesus said, peace, be still. Then he said to them, first he spoke to the storm. Then he spoke to them and said, why are you so fearful? How is it that you have no faith? And I was thinking to myself, why are you dissing Jesus? Why are you dissing us? Saying that we have no faith. Jesus wasn't saying it like, how come you just have no faith? What he was saying was, come on, you got to have some faith. You got to have some faith and believe. You got to believe that I am the Son of God. He said to them, why are you so fearful? And this is what I made a connection with faith and fear. When we struggle with our faith, we're always going to struggle with fear. But when we continue to trust God in faith and choose faith over fear, we will not be as fearful of the uncertainties for tomorrow. Instead, we will walk in faith. And that's what God wants us to do. He wants us to have confidence in the future, that God is with us and that God is going to bring us peace. Can you guys get the... Right? So how do we find peace? Here we go. How do we find peace? What we do, we pray for peace. Pray. You're here today, say, how do we find peace? How do we get peace? What do? We pray for peace. Notice what Paul writes in Philippians. He says, do not be anxious about anything, but in everything, by what, church? Prayer and petition. What do you say? Don't be anxious. Don't be fearful. But in everything. What does it say? By what? Prayer and petition. First, how do we find peace? We pray. What's the second thing we do? We release everything and everyone to God. In petition. Let's go back. Prayer and petition with thanksgiving, we present our requests to God. Prayer and petition with thanksgiving, we present our requests to God. What do? We release everything and everyone to God. How do we find peace? Release. God, I release. God, I release everything to you. God, I release the economy to you. God, I release my job to you. God, I release my finances to you. God, I release my health to you. God, I release my children to you. God, I release my marriage to you. God, I release everything to you. I release everything and everyone to you. Isn't that powerful? Because you were not created to carry the burdens of the world. Jesus said, cast your cares on the Lord because he cares for you. God wants us to take our cares and release them to him. Bring our requests to God, right? So what happens when we pray, right? What happens when we pray? What happens when with thanksgiving? I love this. I skipped this. With thanksgiving. Thank you, Lord, because you're good. Thank you, Lord, because you're faithful. You present your requests to God. You release everything and everyone to God. What happens? You guys ready? This is what it says. And the what, church? The peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guard your heart and mind in Christ Jesus. Isn't that awesome? You release it. And then what happens? The peace of God comes upon your life. And it guards your heart and your mind from the craziness of the world. It's a guard. And I just want to also tell you that how do you find peace? You got to guard your heart and mind. You were not created to be so connected to news medias. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, news outlets. Your soul was not created to carry the burdens of the world. Your soul was not created to constantly be filling your mind and heart with the worries of the world. There's one who carried the worries of the world. There's one who carried the burdens of the world. His name is Jesus. Jesus died for the sins of the world. Jesus is the hope of the world. Jesus is the one that's going to make everything right. You're not Jesus, and neither am I. So guard your heart. Guard your mind. I'm going to protect my soul. I'm not going to just infect my soul with toxicity of this world. I'm not saying to be ignorant. Be informed. But don't carry the toxicity of this world. Let peace rule your heart. Let peace rule your mind. How do we find peace? We guard our heart and mind, but lastly, and most importantly, you invite Jesus into your life. Because Jesus is peace. If you don't know Jesus, you will never know peace. Never. If you don't know Jesus, you will never find peace. And I said all of that to connect us to the Christmas story. In Isaiah chapter 9, verse 6, Isaiah prophesies about the birth of Jesus. Okay? Hundreds of years before Jesus would be born in Bethlehem. he prophesies. You guys ready? And this is what he says about this child. He says, for a child will be born to us. A son will be given to us. And the government will rest on his shoulders. And his name will be called Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Eternal Father, and Prince of Peace. Prince of Peace. Jesus. And this is what I felt today. I felt some of you have allowed the world to rob you of your peace. Some of you have allowed your circumstances to rob you of your peace. You're flooded with anxiety and fear and worry. Can't sleep at night. Your mind is racing. Your soul is flooded. And Jesus is telling you today, here I am. I am your peace. Invite me in to be your peace. He is the Prince of Peace. He is what our soul needs. He is our peace. It's an amazing thing when the world around us is falling apart, where all of the followers of Jesus walk around calm, cool, not surprised, knowing that God is in control, having a peace that centers your soul, a peace that anchors you in the storm. God's peace. Today, some of you have walked into this room, or maybe online, you've been watching online, and you have no peace. But today, Jesus wants to give you peace. Notice this last verse for you today. It says, the Lord of peace himself will give you peace at all times and in every way. He wants to give you peace. Then he writes, the Lord be with you all. Would you bow your head with me today? Can we just lift our hands, if you feel comfortable enough to do that, and say, Jesus, be my peace. Jesus, flood my soul with peace. Jesus, give me peace. A peace that surpasses my understanding. A peace that guards my heart and mind. Jesus, we need your peace. Lord, speak peace, be still to every person here today. Speak peace, be still to every storm people are going through today. Speak peace, be still to every troubled heart here today. Lord, be our peace. Be our peace, Lord. Flood us with peace. Give us peace. A peace that transcends all understanding. A peace that guards our heart and mind in Christ Jesus. Speak peace. With your head bowed and eyes closed, if you're here today and you want to invite Jesus into your heart and life, you want to invite the Prince of Peace into your heart and life, if that's you, won't you lift up your hand? No one's looking around. It's between you and God. Yeah, I see your hand. Just lift it up so I can see. Yeah, I see you in the back. I see you. Anybody else? I see you. Yeah. Let's say this prayer together. Say, dear Jesus, come into my heart and life. The greatest peace is to have peace with you. Lord Jesus, forgive me of my sins. Come into my heart. Give me a brand new start. I love you, Jesus. In Jesus' name. And everybody together said, amen and amen. Can we just congratulate those that said that prayer?